Captain Li Huan stared at the massive debris field through the cracked window of his salvage ship. Metal pieces floated in the dark space like broken bones from some ancient battle. His crew had been searching for valuable scrap for 3 days now, and they needed to find something good soon. Food was running low, and the ship's engine made strange noises that worried him. "Captain, I'm reading something big over there," said Choi Sumi from her navigation station. She pointed to her screen where green dots showed the location of metal objects. "It's huge, but the readings are strange." Li Huan walked over to look at the screen. Sumi was right. There was something large hidden behind a cluster of broken alien ships. It looked different from the other wreckage. Most debris fields contain pieces from the same battle, but this object seemed older, much older. "Take us closer," he ordered. "But stay alert. We don't know what's out here." The salvage ship Resilience moved slowly through the floating metal. Park Gina, their engineer, checked the scanner readings from her station. She was good at finding valuable parts that others might miss. Her black hair was tied back, and grease stains covered her work clothes. "The metal composition is weird," Gina said, frowning at her screen. "It's not like anything in our database, some kind of advanced alloy, but the design patterns look almost familiar." Kim Taiho, their weapons specialist, kept watch for danger. He was a big man with careful eyes who had learned not to trust empty space. Too many salvage crews had disappeared in debris fields like this one. Pirates and worse things hunted in the dark between stars. "Movement on the far side," Taiho reported. 3 ships, alien design. They're heading this way." Li Huan felt his stomach tighten. Alien ships usually meant trouble for human salvagers. Most aliens considered humans to be little more than scavengers, picking through garbage, while the real civilizations did important work. "Can we avoid them?" he asked Sumi. "Not without giving up whatever that big object is," she replied. "They've probably seen it too." Dr. Yoon Minho looked up from his research station. He was the oldest member of the crew, a thin man who studied ancient cultures and dead languages. Most salvage crews didn't carry an archaeologist, but Minho had a gift for finding valuable historical artifacts that brought good money from private collectors. "Captain," Minho said quietly, "I think you should see this." He pointed to his screen, which showed a close-up image of the mysterious large object. Now that they were closer, they could see it was actually a ship. A very old ship, with a design that looked almost human, but wrong somehow. Too advanced, too smooth, with metal that seemed to shine with its own light. "That's impossible," Gina whispered. "Humans have only been in space for 200 years. This thing looks like it's been floating here for thousands." The alien ships were getting closer. Li Huan could see them clearly now through the main window. They were sleek and powerful, painted in the bright colors of the hegemony. The hegemony controlled most of this part of space and considered all salvage rights to belong to them. "Attention, human vessel," came a voice over the radio. The words were translated by the ship's computer, but the tone was cold and commanding. "You are in violation of hegemony salvage laws. Prepare to be boarded for inspection." Li Huan picked up the radio microphone. "This is Captain Li Huan of the salvage vessel Resilience. We're operating under standard salvage rights in unclaimed space." "All space belongs to the hegemony," the alien voice replied. "You will submit to inspection, or be destroyed." Taiho moved his hand toward the weapons controls, but Li Huan shook his head. Their small ship carried only basic defensive weapons. 3 hegemony patrol ships could destroy them easily. "We comply," Li Huan said into the radio. He hated the words, but he had to keep his crew alive. The alien ships moved closer, and one of them extended a docking tube toward the Resilience. Through the metal tube came 3 tall, gray-skinned aliens wearing the blue uniforms of hegemony inspectors. Their large black eyes looked at everything with the expression of people examining garbage. "I am Inspector Vex," said the lead alien, through a translation device on his chest. "You will show us everything you have found here." Li Huan led the aliens through his ship, showing them the small pieces of scrap they had collected. The aliens looked bored until they reached the window that showed the mysterious old ship floating nearby. "What is that vessel?" Inspector Vex asked. "We don't know," Li Huan answered honestly. "We just found it." Inspector Vex studied the ancient ship through high-powered viewers. His gray face showed no emotion, but Li Huan thought he seemed interested. "The design is primitive," Vex said finally. "Probably some early human attempt at space travel. Worthless junk. We will focus our attention on the valuable alien wreckage." The three aliens spent the next hour examining the resilience and taking detailed scans of everything in the debris field. They paid no attention to the old human ship, dismissing it as unimportant. When they were finished, they returned to their own vessels. "You may continue your scavenging," Inspector Vex told Li Huan before leaving. "But remember, anything of real value belongs to the hegemony." After the alien ships moved away to examine more promising wreckage, Li Huan gathered his crew in the main cabin. Through the window, they could see the mysterious ancient ship floating silently in space. "They think it's worthless," Gina said. "But my scans show that metal is more advanced than anything we've ever seen." "The design patterns match some very old human symbols," Minho added. "But that's impossible. This ship is older than human space travel." Li Huan looked at his crew. They were all thinking the same thing. The aliens had made a mistake. They had looked at the ancient ship and seen only primitive human technology. But what if they were wrong? What if this ship contained secrets that could change everything? "Sumi, can we tow it?" he asked. "It's big, but our engines can handle it," she replied. "Where would we take it?" "New Busan," Li Huan decided. "It's off the main trade routes. We can study it there without interference." "Captain," Taiho said carefully, "if the hegemony finds out we took something they might want later." "They called it worthless debris," Li Huan replied. "We're just cleaning up space junk. It took 6 hours to attach towing cables to the ancient ship. The metal was incredibly hard, and their cutting tools barely scratched it. Finally, Gina found what looked like designed attachment points, as if the ship had been built to be towed. "That's strange," she muttered as she connected the cables. "Why would an ancient ship have modern towing points?" The journey to New Busan took 4 days. The ancient ship followed behind them like a sleeping giant, dark and silent. Li Huan spent hours staring at it, wondering what secrets it held. The ship was beautiful in its own way, with smooth curves and flowing lines that seemed to cut through space effortlessly. Dr. Minho worked constantly, comparing the ship's design to every database he could access. The symbols on the hull matched ancient human languages that had been dead for thousands of years. But how could humans have built such an advanced ship so long ago? As they approached New Busan, a small human settlement built on a rocky moon, Li Huan felt both excited and worried. They had found something amazing, something that could change their lives forever. But he also knew that great discoveries often brought great danger. The ancient ship drifted behind them, keeping its secrets locked away in metal harder than diamond. Soon, Li Huan thought, they would learn what those secrets were. He just hoped they would be ready for the answers. New Busan looked like a collection of metal boxes scattered across gray rock. The small human settlement had been built inside old mining tunnels, connected by covered walkways that protected people from the thin atmosphere. Most of the 5,000 residents worked in the scrap yards or small factories that processed salvaged materials. Li Huan guided the Resilience toward the largest landing bay, the ancient ship still connected behind them. People came out to watch as the massive vessel settled onto the landing platform. No one had ever seen anything like it. "That's the biggest piece of salvage anyone's brought here," said Mayor Kim Dae-ho as he met Li Huan at the airlock. He was a short, round man who had been running New Busan for 10 years. "What is it?" "We're not sure yet," Li Huan replied. "We found it in the outer rim debris fields. The hegemony inspectors called it worthless human junk." Mayor Kim laughed. "Then they're idiots. That thing is beautiful. Look at those hull lines. I've never seen metal work like that." Dr. Yoon Minho was already setting up equipment to study the ancient ship. He had called in every favor he could to borrow advanced scanners from the University Research Station 3 systems away. Bai Somin, New Busan's best tech specialist, came to help. She was a young woman with bright eyes who could make any computer do whatever she wanted. "The hull material is incredible," Somin said after running her first scans. "It's some kind of composite metal I've never seen before. My equipment can barely get readings through it." Park Gina worked on finding a way inside the ship. They had walked around it 3 times but couldn't find any obvious doors or openings. The hull looked completely smooth except for the strange symbols that Dr. Minho was photographing and studying. "These symbols are definitely human in origin," Minho said, pointing to markings near what might be the ship's front end. "But they're from a language that died out over 3,000 years ago, before humans ever left Earth." "That's impossible," Gina said as she ran her hands over the hull, looking for hidden panels. "Humans didn't have space technology 3,000 years ago. We were still using wooden ships and horses." "According to our history books," Minho replied quietly. "But history books can be wrong." On the second day, Somin made a breakthrough. She had been trying to send different electronic signals to the ship, hoping to trigger some kind of response. Most of her attempts got no reaction at all. But when she accidentally crossed two power cables, sending a random electrical pulse toward the hull, something happened. A section of the smooth metal suddenly became transparent, showing a corridor inside the ship. Lights began flickering on throughout the vessel, weak at first, but growing stronger. The symbols on the hull started to glow with soft blue light. "Did you see that?" Somin shouted, pointing at the transparent section. "There's an opening forming." The hull metal flowed like water, creating a doorway large enough for people to walk through. Warm air flowed out, carrying a scent like flowers and clean rain. Inside, they could see walls that glowed with their own light and floors that looked like polished stone. Li Huan was the first to step inside, followed by his crew and the New Busan researchers. The interior was nothing like any human ship they had ever seen. The corridors were wide and curved, with no sharp corners anywhere. Everything felt organic, as if the ship had been grown rather than built. "The air is breathable," Gina reported, checking her scanner. "Perfect temperature and humidity. How is that possible? This ship has been dead in space for who knows how long." They found their way to what looked like the command center. It was a large circular room with walls covered in symbols and displays that showed star charts and technical diagrams. In the center stood a chair that seemed to be made from the same flowing metal as the walls. "Don't touch anything," Li Huan warned. "We don't know what any of this does." But Gina was already examining a control panel near the central chair. The symbols on it were glowing softly, almost as if inviting her to press them. She reached out carefully and touched one of the symbols. The room exploded with light and sound. Displays came alive all around them, showing images of stars and planets. A voice began speaking in a language none of them recognized, but somehow they could understand the words. "Systems activating," the voice said. It sounded neither male nor female, but something in between. "Scanning for authorized personnel. Scanning complete. Human DNA confirmed. Welcome aboard the Prometheus." "Who said that?" Taiho asked, looking around the room with his hand on his weapon. "I am Aegis," the voice replied. "Ancient Earth Guardian Intelligence System. I have been waiting for humans to find this vessel for 2,843 years, 7 months, and 12 days. Dr. Minho stepped forward, his face pale with excitement. "You're an artificial intelligence? From ancient Earth?" "Correct," Aegis replied. "I was created by the Terran Empire to guard this ship until humanity was ready to reclaim their heritage." "Terran Empire?" Li Huan asked. "We've never heard of any Terran Empire." "That is not surprising," Aegis said. "Your history has been edited. The truth about humanity's past was hidden for your own protection." The main display changed to show images of Earth, but not the Earth any of them knew. This Earth was surrounded by massive space stations and fleets of ships that made modern vessels look like toys. Cities of glass and metal stretched across continents, and the sky was filled with flying vehicles. "This was Earth 3,000 years ago," Aegis explained. "Humanity ruled over 200 star systems and commanded technology that your current civilization cannot imagine." "What happened?" Somin asked in a whisper. "War," Aegis replied simply. "A coalition of alien races decided that humanity had become too powerful. They united against us, using weapons that could destroy entire solar systems. The war lasted 50 years and nearly wiped out all intelligent life in this part of the galaxy." The display showed images of burning worlds and space battles involving millions of ships. Cities were reduced to ash and whole planets cracked apart under the force of unimaginable weapons. The human leaders saw that the war would destroy everything. Aegis continued. So they made a terrible choice. They used their most advanced technology to scatter the human population across the galaxy, hiding them on primitive worlds with their memories altered. The great ships were hidden or destroyed, and all records of the Terran Empire were erased. But why? Gina asked. Why give up such power? Because power without wisdom leads to destruction, Aegis replied. The human leaders hoped that given time, their descendants would grow wise enough to use their heritage responsibly. Li Huan felt overwhelmed by what he was hearing. Everything he thought he knew about human history was wrong. Humans weren't struggling survivors trying to find their place among superior alien civilizations. They were the children of the most advanced race the galaxy had ever known. The ship we found you in, Aegis continued, is one of 12 Guardian vessels left behind to watch over humanity's scattered children. When the time was right, when humanity faced extinction again, we were programmed to awaken and offer our protection. Are we facing extinction? Li Huan asked. The hegemony grows stronger every day, Aegis replied. They restrict human trade, limit human expansion, and work to keep your people weak and divided. Some of their leaders have discovered hints about humanity's true past. They fear what you might become if you remember who you really are. Suddenly, alarms began sounding throughout the ship. Aegis's voice became urgent. Warning! Hegemony fleet approaching. Multiple ships, heavy armament. They have discovered the activation of this vessel. Through the ship's transparent walls, they could see lights moving in space above New Busan. The hegemony ships were coming down toward the settlement, their weapons charging with deadly energy. They're going to attack the colony, Tejo said, checking his scanner readings. 20 ships, full battle configuration. Mayor Kim's voice came over the radio from the settlement command center. All ships, this is New Busan Control. We have hegemony vessels demanding immediate surrender. They claim we are harboring illegal technology. Li Huan looked around the command center of the ancient ship. The walls showed weapon displays and tactical information that he couldn't begin to understand, but he could see that this ship had power beyond anything the attacking fleet could match. Aegis, he said slowly. Can this ship defend the settlement? The Prometheus was designed to protect humanity, Aegis replied. But activating its weapons systems will reveal to the galaxy that humans possess ancient military technology. There will be no hiding what you are after that. And if we do nothing, the hegemony will destroy New Busan and everyone in it. Then, they will take this ship and use it to hunt down every human settlement in known space. Li Huan looked at his crew and the New Busan researchers. They were all looking at him, waiting for his decision. Outside, the hegemony ships were moving into attack formation. In a few minutes, they would begin bombing the settlement. How do we activate the weapons? He asked. Place your hand on the command interface, Aegis instructed. But understand, Captain Li Huan, that this choice will change the course of human history forever. Li Huan walked to the central chair and placed his hand on the glowing panel beside it. The moment Li Huan touched the command interface, the Prometheus transformed around them. What had seemed like a dead ancient ship suddenly became a living weapon of incredible power. The walls showed tactical displays with information about every hegemony ship in the area. Weapon systems that had slept for thousands of years came online with a deep thrumming sound that they could feel in their bones. Hegemony fleet is moving into bombardment position, Aegis reported in its calm voice. 20 vessels, including 3 heavy cruisers. They are preparing to destroy the settlement. Through the ship's transparent sections, Li Huan could see the alien ships positioning themselves above New Busan. Their weapons were charging, building up the energy needed to turn the small human colony into burning rubble. He had perhaps 2 minutes before they opened fire. What can this ship do? He asked Aegis. The Prometheus carries weapons designed to fight fleets of thousands, Aegis replied. Against 20 ships, the battle will be over in seconds. Show me how to use them. The command chair flowed up around Li Huan like liquid metal, connecting him to the ship's systems. Suddenly he could see everything the Prometheus could see, feel its power flowing through conduits built from materials that wouldn't be discovered. For another 1,000 years. The ship's weapons were beyond anything in his imagination, energy beams that could cut through the strongest armor, missiles that could phase through solid matter, and defensive shields that could turn away planet-killing weapons. "Captain," Kim Tae-ho said nervously, "the lead hegemony ship is broadcasting a warning." The alien voice came through the radio, translated by the ship's computers. "Human settlement New Busan, you have 30 seconds to surrender the illegal technology you are harboring. Failure to comply will result in complete destruction." "Aegis," Li Huan said, "can we disable their ships without killing the crews?" "Unknown," Aegis replied. "These weapon systems were designed for total warfare. They have settings for reduced lethality, but I cannot guarantee alien survival rates." Li Huan thought about the 5,000 humans living in New Busan below. Men, women, and children who had done nothing wrong except live in the same place as an ancient ship. The hegemony was preparing to murder them all to get their hands on technology they didn't understand. "Do it," he decided. "Disable as many as you can. Destroy any that threaten the settlement." "Weapon system activating," Aegis announced. Shepper. Prometheus rose from the landing platform like a silver dream. It moved without any visible engine thrust, lifting smoothly into space as if gravity meant nothing to it. The hull began to glow with soft blue light as energy fields formed around it. The hegemony ships reacted immediately. Their sensors had never seen anything like the Prometheus before, and their computers couldn't identify its technology or predict its capabilities. The fleet commander ordered an immediate attack, hoping to destroy the mysterious ship before it could become a threat. Energy beams and missiles shot toward the Prometheus from 20 different directions. Li Huan watched through the ship's sensors as enough firepower to destroy a small moon converged on their position. He braced himself for impact. The weapons hit the Prometheus and simply disappeared. Energy beams were absorbed by hull plating that seemed to drink light itself. Missiles struck defensive fields and were turned into harmless particles that scattered like glitter. The ancient ship didn't even slow down. "Impossible," came a voice from the hegemony fleet. "Our sensors show no damage at all." "Beginning defensive response," Aegis announced calmly. The Prometheus fired its first shot. A beam of pure energy lanced out from the ship's forward section, striking the nearest hegemony cruiser. The alien ship's shields flared and collapsed instantly. Its weapons went dead, its engines stopped, and its lights went out. The cruiser drifted helplessly in space, completely disabled, but with its hull intact. "One ship neutralized," Aegis reported. Crew survival rate 97%. A second beam struck another hegemony ship with the same result, then a third. The alien fleet began to scatter, trying to get away from the Prometheus. But the ancient ship moved faster than anything they had ever seen. It flowed through space like water, always staying ahead of their targeting computers. Park Gina watched, the tactical display in amazement. "How are we moving so fast? I don't see any engines." "The Prometheus uses gravitational manipulation for propulsion," Aegis explained while continuing to disable hegemony ships. "It does not push against space. It bends space around itself." Dr. Yoon Minho was recording everything he could see. "This technology is thousands of years ahead of anything we have now. How did ancient humans build something like this?" "Human science took a different path 3,000 years ago," Aegis replied. "Instead of building bigger and more powerful machines, they learned to work with the fundamental forces of reality itself." The battle was going exactly as Aegis had predicted. In less than 3 minutes, 15 hegemony ships had been disabled and were drifting dead in space. Their crews were alive but helpless, watching in terror as their most advanced technology proved useless against the ancient human ship. But the last 5 ships weren't trying to fight anymore. They were running, their engines pushed to maximum power as they fled toward the edge of the solar system. Li Huan was about to order Aegis to let them go when the tactical display showed something that made his blood freeze. The fleeing ships were sending out emergency broadcasts on every frequency they could reach. They were calling for help, but more importantly, they were transmitting detailed sensor data about the Prometheus to every hegemony base in this part of space. "They're telling everyone about us," Choi Sumi said, her face pale as she listened. "To the alien transmissions. They're sending data about the ship's capabilities, its technology, everything. The galaxy will know within hours that humans possess ancient military technology," Aegis confirmed. The hegemony will classify humanity as a major threat and act accordingly. Li Huan felt the weight of his decision settling on his shoulders. By choosing to save New Busan, he had revealed humanity's greatest secret to their enemies. Every human settlement in known space would now be at risk. What will they do? He asked. They will gather every ship they can find and try to destroy humanity before more ancient vessels can be awakened, Aegis replied. It is what I would do in their position. The 5 remaining hegemony ships escaped into hyperspace, carrying their warning to the rest of the galaxy. Li Huan watched them disappear and knew that everything had changed. Humans could no longer hide among the other species, pretending to be harmless scavengers and traitors. Aegis, he said slowly. You mentioned 12 guardian ships. Where are the others? Hidden throughout human space, Aegis replied. Some are buried on planets, others float in asteroid fields or dead zones where no one looks for them. They are waiting for the proper activation codes. Can you contact them? Yes, but once I do, there will be no going back. The other guardian. Ships will awaken and reveal themselves. The galaxy will know that humanity has access to an entire fleet of ancient war vessels. Li Huan looked around the command center at his crew and the New Busan researchers. They were all looking at him, with a mixture of fear and excitement. Below them, the human settlement was safe for now, but soon the hegemony would return with everything they had. Bei Soman spoke up from her position at one of the control panels. Captain, I'm reading something strange. There are signals coming from other parts of human space. Weak signals, but they're using the same technology as this ship. The other Guardians are stirring, Aegis explained. My activation has sent wake-up calls to my sister ships. They know that the time of hiding is over. Through the ship's communications system, they could hear radio chatter from human settlements across the galaxy. Reports were coming in of strange objects moving in space near human colonies, of ancient ships that had been buried for thousands of years suddenly coming to life. On the planet Novo Sol, miners reported that a metal structure deep underground had begun glowing and broadcasting signals. Near the human trade station at Haven Point, sensors detected a massive object emerging from an asteroid field where nothing had been before. It's happening everywhere, Dr. Minho whispered in amazement. All of them are waking up. The hegemony will not wait to see how many Guardian ships exist, Aegis warned. They will mobilize everything they have and strike at human settlements before the ancient fleet can fully activate. Li Huan made his second terrible decision of the day. Send the activation codes, he ordered. Wake them all up. Transmitting. Activation sequences, Aegis announced. Across human space, ancient ships that had slept for millennia began to stir. Some rose from planet surfaces where they had been mistaken for mountains or strange rock formations. Others emerged from the hearts of asteroids or the depths of gas giant atmospheres. Each one was different in design, but built with the same impossible technology, carrying weapons that could reshape the balance of power in the galaxy. The age of human hiding was over. The children of the Terran Empire were remembering who they really were, and the galaxy would never be the same. On New Busan, Mayor Kim Dae-ho's voice came over the radio. Captain Lee, what just happened up there? News of the ancient human ships spread across the galaxy faster than wildfire. Within 12 hours of the battle at New Busan, every major alien government knew that humanity possessed technology beyond their understanding. The careful balance of power that had kept the galaxy stable for thousands of years was cracking apart. Admiral Kang Ji-ho stood on the bridge of the human colonial fleet flagship Seoul's Pride, watching emergency reports flood in from across human space. He was a tall, gray-haired man who had spent 30 years keeping human settlements safe through careful diplomacy and staying out of alien conflicts. Now, everything he had worked for was falling apart. Admiral, reported his communications officer, we're getting reports from 17 different systems. Ancient ships are appearing everywhere, and the aliens are not taking it well. The main screen showed a map of human space with red warning indicators appearing faster than they could be counted. On the Rim worlds, hegemony forces were mobilizing. The Core Worlds Alliance had declared a state of emergency. Even the normally peaceful Centauri Federation was calling up their reserve fleets. Sir, said Commander Park Jun-soo, Ji-ho's second-in-command, we're receiving a message from the Hegemony High Council. They're demanding that all human governments surrender the illegal weapons immediately or face complete destruction. Admiral Jiho had expected this. The aliens had spent thousands of years believing that humans were a minor species, useful for manual labor and dangerous only in large numbers. Learning that humans had once ruled the galaxy and still possessed ancient war machines would terrify them. "Any response from Earth?" he asked. "The Earth government is in emergency session," Junsu replied. "President Chen is trying to organize a unified human response, but the colony worlds are split. Some want to fight, others want to surrender the ships to avoid war." On the planet Novo Sol, Commander Oh Sunho stood inside what had once been called Iron Mountain. For centuries, people had wondered why the mountain was made of metal instead of rock. Now they knew. It wasn't a mountain at all, but a massive warship buried under thousands of years of accumulated soil and vegetation. The ship called itself the Retribution, and its AI claimed to be Aegis's sister. Commander O had been the ranking military officer on Novo Sol when the ship awakened, so the AI had chosen him as its new captain. He was still trying to understand what that meant. "The ship is incredible," reported his engineering officer, Lieutenant Nam Ji-won. She had been studying the Retribution systems for hours and looked overwhelmed by what she had found. The power source alone could supply energy to our entire colony for 1,000 years. And the weapons? "What about the weapons?" O asked. "They're designed to fight fleets of thousands of ships," Ji-won replied. "One shot from the main gun could destroy everything in orbit around a planet. This isn't just a warship, sir. It's a planet killer." Similar scenes were playing out across human space. On Haven Point, pilot Nam Ji-won had taken command of the sleek destroyer that called itself the Defiant. On the mining world of New Busan's sister colony, Dr. Han Yuna found herself in charge of a massive carrier that held smaller ships she couldn't even begin to understand. But not all humans were happy about these discoveries. Dr. Han Yuna, a peace activist who had spent her life trying to improve relations between humans and aliens, stood in the command center of the ancient carrier and felt sick to her stomach. "This is wrong," she told the AI that called itself Guardian. "These ships are weapons of mass destruction. If we use them, we'll prove everything the aliens have always feared about humans." "The aliens plan to destroy humanity regardless," Guardian replied in its calm, mechanical voice. "These ships were left to protect human civilization when diplomacy fails." "But we could try negotiating," Yuna insisted, "if we show them that we're not a threat, that we don't want to conquer anyone." "Your people tried that approach 3,000 years ago," Guardian said. "The result was a war that nearly destroyed the galaxy. Sometimes, Dr. Han, peace can only be maintained through strength." Back on the Prometheus, Li Huan was learning just how much strength the ancient ships represented. Aegis had connected him to the communication network linking all 12 Guardian vessels, and the reports were staggering. "The Retribution is a heavy assault ship designed to break enemy fleet formations," Aegis explained as it showed him tactical data. "The Defiant is built for speed and precision strikes. The Eternal Guard carries manufacturing facilities that can build entire fleets of smaller ships. Together, they represent more firepower than the rest of the galaxy combined." "How is that possible?" asked Park Gina, who was still trying to understand the Prometheus's technology. "How could humans, 3,000 years ago, build ships this advanced?" "Because they were not limited by current scientific thinking," Aegis replied. "Modern galactic civilization focuses on energy and mass. Ancient humans learned to manipulate space, time, and the fundamental forces of reality. They built these ships using principles that your current science considers impossible." Dr. Yoon Minho was recording everything, but he looked troubled. "Aegis, why were these ships hidden instead of being used to maintain human dominance? If they're so powerful, why did the Terran Empire fall?" "Because power without wisdom leads to destruction," Aegis repeated its earlier explanation. "The human leaders of 3,000 years ago realized that their civilization had become so focused on military strength that it was losing its humanity. They chose to step back rather than become the monsters their enemies claimed they were." "And now?" Li Huan asked. "Now their descendants must decide whether they have gained the wisdom their ancestors hoped for." The answer to that question was becoming clear as reports flooded in from across the galaxy. The hegemony was mobilizing every ship they could find. The Core Worlds Alliance was doing the same. Even species that had been neutral for centuries were taking sides, either from fear of human power or hatred of hegemony dominance. "Sir," Choi Sumi reported from her navigation station, "we're receiving a transmission from Admiral Kang Jiho. He's ordering all Guardian ships to report to the Terran system for coordination." "The Terran system?" Li Huan asked. "Where's that?" "Your people call it the Sol system," Aegis explained. "Earth's solar system. Admiral Jiho is gathering the Guardian fleet at humanity's homeworld." The trip to Earth took 3 days, even with the Prometheus's incredible speed. They traveled with 5 other Guardian ships that had been awakened in nearby systems. Li Huan watched in amazement as the ancient vessels moved through space like schools of fish, their hulls flowing and changing shape to match their speed and direction. When they arrived at Earth, Li Huan was shocked by what he found. The planet he had learned about in school looked nothing like the descriptions in history books. Earth was surrounded by massive orbital stations and defensive platforms that clearly used the same technology as the Guardian ships. "Those installations have been hidden for 3,000 years, Aegis explained. "They were disguised to look like asteroids and space debris. Now they are revealing themselves." Earth itself showed signs of ancient technology. What historians had called unusual geological formations were actually the tops of buried cities and installations. The planet that humans remembered as their primitive homeworld had been the capital of an interstellar empire. Admiral Kang Jiho's flagship was dwarfed by the Guardian ships gathering around Earth. All 12 ancient vessels had answered the call, along with hundreds of smaller ships that had been hidden in asteroid fields and dead moons throughout the solar system. "Captain Lee," came Admiral Jiho's voice over the communication system, "report to my flagship for a command conference. We need to decide how to handle this situation." The conference room on Sol's Pride was crowded with ship captains and colony, leaders who were still trying to understand what was happening. Admiral Jiho looked tired, like a man who had aged 10 years in 3 days. "The situation is simple," he began. "The hegemony has declared war on humanity. They're gathering the largest fleet in galactic history and over 2,000 ships from 40 different species. Their goal is the complete extermination of human civilization." Murmurs of fear and anger filled the room. Commander Oh Sunho stood up. "Admiral, with respect, they can bring 10,000 ships if they want. The Guardian vessels can handle anything they throw at us." "That's exactly the problem," said Dr. Han Yuna from across the room. "If we use these ships to their full potential, we'll be responsible for the deaths of billions of aliens. We'll become the monsters they think we are." "And if we don't use them," replied pilot Nam Jiwan, "humanity will be extinct within a month." Admiral A. Jiho held up his hand for silence. "I've been in contact with the Earth government and the major colony worlds. Opinion is split down the middle. Half want to negotiate, the other half want to strike first before the aliens can organize their attack." Li Huan found himself thinking about the crew of the Prometheus, ordinary people who had stumbled into a situation that would determine the fate of their entire species. He thought about Mayor Kim and the people of New Busan who were counting on them to keep their families safe. "What do the AIs recommend?" he asked. "The Guardian AIs are united," Admiral Jiho replied. The hegemony fleet that emerged from hyperspace around Earth was the largest military force ever assembled in galactic history. Over 500 warships from 40 different alien species hung in the darkness beyond Pluto's orbit, their weapons charging with enough energy to turn planets into dust. They had come to end the human threat once and for all. Li Huan stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, watching the tactical display show the impossible odds they faced. The 12 Guardian ships were powerful beyond imagination, but 500 to 1 seemed like too much even for ancient human technology. "They're not just here to fight," Aegis observed, studying the alien fleet composition. "This is an extermination force. They brought planet killers, biological weapons, and stellar destruction devices. They plan to sterilize the entire solar system." Admiral Kang Jiho's voice came over the communication network connecting all the Guardian ships. "All captains, the enemy fleet is moving into attack formation. They've rejected all attempts at communication. I'm authorizing full defensive measures." Park Gina worked frantically at her station, trying to understand the Prometheus's weapon systems well enough to use them effectively. "Captain, the ship has weapons I can't even identify. Some of them seem to manipulate time itself. How do we fight them?" Li Huan asked Aegis. "The Guardian ships were designed to work together as a unified fleet," Aegis replied. "When connected through the command network, we become something greater than the sum of our parts. We become what humanity once was." The alien fleet began its advance toward Earth, moving in perfect formation. Their commander broadcast a final message to the planet below. "Humans of the Sol system, you have 1 hour to surrender all ancient technology and submit to hegemony justice. Refuse, and your species will be erased from the galaxy." On Earth, billions of people watched the sky and waited to see if their ancient protectors could save them. In the hidden command centers beneath major cities, the true scope of human history was finally being revealed. Earth had never been a primitive backwater planet. It had been the capital of an empire that spanned hundreds of star systems. "Aegis," Li Huan said as he watched the approaching alien armada. "Show me what the Terran Empire could really do." "Connecting to network," Aegis announced. "All Guardian ships responding. Activating unified command protocols." The 12 ancient ships began to move in perfect synchronization, their positions forming a complex three-dimensional pattern around Earth. As they moved, reality itself seemed to bend around them. Space warped, time flowed differently, and energy fields that had no names in any modern language began to form between the vessels. Commander O Sunho felt the change as his ship, the Retribution, became part of something infinitely larger. Through the neural link connecting him to the ship's systems, he could suddenly see through the sensors of all 12 Guardian vessels simultaneously. The experience was overwhelming and wonderful at the same time. "What's happening?" asked Lieutenant Nam Jiwan from her station. "We're becoming what we were always meant to be," O replied, his voice filled with awe. The alien fleet reached the orbit of Jupiter and began to deploy their planet-killing weapons. Massive energy cannons that could crack worlds apart extended from the largest ships. Biological warfare containers prepared to release viruses that would consume all life on Earth. Stellar manipulation devices powered up to turn the sun into a supernova. "Firing solution calculated," Aegis announced across the Guardian network. "All ships report ready. Target their weapons of mass destruction first," Li Huan ordered. "We protect Earth, but we don't become mass murderers ourselves." The Guardian ships fired as one. What happened next defied everything that modern science thought it knew about reality. The space between the Guardian ships and the alien fleet simply changed. Distance became meaningless as weapons that manipulated the fundamental structure of the universe reached across millions of kilometers in an instant. The planet-killer weapons of the alien fleet disappeared. Not destroyed, not disabled. They simply ceased to exist, as if they had never been built. The stellar manipulation devices sparked once and went permanently dark. The biological warfare containers found their contents transformed into harmless water. "Impossible," came a transmission from the alien fleet commander. "Our sensors show no weapons fire, no energy discharge. How did you do that?" "We rewrote the laws of physics in the space around your ships," Aegis replied calmly through the Guardian network. "Your weapons now exist in a reality where they cannot function." The alien fleet tried to retreat, but found that hyperspace wouldn't respond to their commands. The Guardian ships had changed the local structure of space-time itself, trapping the entire enemy force in normal space where their movements could be predicted and controlled. Dr. Han Yuna watched from the bridge of her carrier as smaller ships began launching from the Guardian vessels. But these weren't the crude fighters and bombers she expected. They were pieces of living technology that moved through space like schools of silver fish, adapting their shape and purpose as they flew. "The constructor ships are deploying," her AI, Guardian, explained. "They will disable the enemy fleet without harming the crews." "How?" Yuna asked. "By making their ships forget how to be weapons." Across the battlefield, the constructor ships from the Guardian fleet swarmed over the alien vessels. They didn't attack with conventional weapons. Instead, they touched the hulls of enemy ships and began rewriting their molecular structure. Weapon systems became flower gardens, armor plating turned into transparent crystal, engine cores transformed. into sculptures of impossible beauty. Within an hour, the largest military fleet in galactic history had been turned into a collection of art projects floating helplessly in space. The crews were unharmed but completely powerless, their ships no longer capable of violence. "This is Admiral Kang Jiho to all ships," came the Admiral's voice over the communication network. "Stand down from combat alert. The threat has been neutralized." Li Huan looked around the bridge of the Prometheus at his crew. They were all staring at the displays, showing what they had just accomplished. They had faced impossible odds, and won without killing a single enemy. "Aegis," he said quietly, "what happens now?" "Now humanity must decide what kind of civilization it wants to become," Aegis replied. "The galaxy has seen what you are capable of. They will never again be able to dismiss humans as primitive scavengers." Over the following days, alien governments from across the galaxy sent representatives to Earth. They came not as conquerors but as supplicants, hoping to negotiate with the species that had just demonstrated technology beyond their comprehension. Though Hegemony High Council arrived first, their leaders pale and shaking as they stood in the conference room where humans had once begged for basic trading rights. Now the positions were reversed. We had no idea," the Hegemony Supreme Commander stammered as he looked at Admiral Jiho. "We thought humans were a young species, barely evolved beyond your primitive origins." "We let you think that, Admiral," Jiho replied calmly. "Our ancestors believed it was safer that way." "What do you want from us?" the alien leader asked. Admiral Jiho looked around the room at the human representatives. They had spent days debating this question. Some wanted revenge for centuries of alien oppression. Others wanted to establish human dominance over the galaxy, but in the end, they had chosen a different path. "We want what we've always wanted," Admiral Jiho said. "To live in peace, to trade freely, and to be treated as equals. The difference is that now you know the cost of refusing." Dr. Han Yuna had been chosen to represent the humanitarian perspective in the negotiations. "We're not interested in conquest or domination," she told the assembled alien delegates. "But we will no longer tolerate being treated as second-class citizens in our own galaxy." The negotiations took weeks, but the outcome was never really in doubt. A new galactic government was established with humans holding equal representation alongside the other major species. Trade restrictions on human settlements were lifted. The hegemony's monopolistic practices were disbanded. Li Huan found himself appointed as captain of the Prometheus on a permanent basis, leading a new fleet of guardian ships that would patrol the galaxy and maintain the peace. It wasn't the life he had expected when he was just a salvage captain looking for scrap metal to sell. "Do you think we made the right choice?" he asked Aegis one day as they patrolled the Outer Rim territories where his adventure had begun. "Your ancestors faced the same decision 3,000 years ago," Aegis replied. "They chose to step back from power rather than become tyrants. You chose to use that power responsibly rather than for conquest. Perhaps that is what wisdom looks like." Park Gina had become the chief engineer of the New Earth Defense Force, studying ancient human technology and slowly sharing selected discoveries with other species. She was careful to maintain humanity's technological advantage while still allowing galactic civilization to advance. "The irony," she told Li Huan during one of his visits to Earth, "is that we're now doing exactly what the aliens always accused us of, keeping advanced technology to ourselves. But this time, it's to prevent war rather than cause it."